My name is Juliet Dane. I'm 30 years old, a colonel in the United States Army, and tomorrow I'll be sitting across from my father and brother in a high-stakes defense contract meeting. Only they have no idea I'm the Pentagon liaison with final approval authority. 5 years ago, I left this house without looking back. I'd grown tired of being the disappointment, the daughter who threw away her future by choosing military service over business school. My father once told me the Army was for people without real options. That was the last meaningful conversation we had. Tonight, I'm back home for family dinner. My mother will talk about Logan's promotion. My father will nod with pride, and someone will ask me if I'm still moving around a lot. I won't argue. I won't correct them. Because tomorrow, when their boss calls me Colonel Dane in front of a room full of executives, the silence will speak for itself. Let them have tonight. Tomorrow, everything changes. The driveway was narrower than I remembered. My old car used to fit here with room to spare, but now my rented black SUV seemed too sharp, too out of place beside my mother's aging minivan. I turned off the engine and sat in silence, letting the hum of the heater fade. My palms were dry now, military calm, they'd call it, but my stomach still churned like it used to before deployment. The porch light was on, casting a warm yellow glow over the chipped welcome mat and faded front door. Nothing had changed. Not the cracked steps, not the brown hedges in desperate need of trimming, and certainly not the feeling that waited for me inside. That particular blend of being unseen and hyperanalyzed all at once. I rang the doorbell out of habit. "Juliet?" my mother called from the kitchen. She didn't come to the door. "It's open!" Of course it was. I pushed it open and stepped inside. Same floral scent. Same wall of framed photos. My brother's graduation, his wedding, his 2 boys. No pictures of me in uniform. Not even the commissioning portrait I sent 5 years ago. "Dinner's almost ready," my mother said without looking up as I stepped into the kitchen. "Logan and Meryl are on their way. Logan just got another promotion. You'll never believe it." I smiled politely. "That's great, Mom. You'll have to congratulate him. He's leading the entire systems integration team now. Everyone at your father's company says he's going places." That phrase, "going places," used to haunt me. It always sounded like a train I missed. Now it was just noise. The dining room table was set for 6. There was no name card, but the seating was implied. Logan at the head, Dad on his right, Mom between them, and me somewhere that didn't matter. Logan and Meryl arrived exactly on time, as always. He wore the kind of blazer that says, "I'm important, but not trying too hard." And she brought a bottle of wine none of us would actually enjoy, but would all pretend to appreciate. "Hey, Jules," Logan said as he hugged me briefly, already looking over my shoulder toward Dad. "Long time." 5 years, I replied. He blinked, clearly unsure if I was joking. I wasn't. We ate roast beef, mashed potatoes, and the same side salad Mom had made since I was 10. Logan held court effortlessly, detailing corporate restructures, performance bonuses, and what his team was doing for the military arm of the company. My father looked like he might cry from pride. "And you?" Mom turned to me, her smile polite but empty. "Still traveling with the Army?" I took a sip of water. "More or less." "Still a captain?" Dad asked, eyes not leaving his fork. "Something like that." "Must be tough, being in the field all the time," Logan added. "I mean, no long-term strategy, right? Just following orders?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. My uniform was still folded carefully in the back of my suitcase upstairs. The silver eagle insignia catching light through fabric. Tomorrow, they'd learn just how much strategy I was responsible for. For now, I let them talk. It would be the last time they spoke over me. I spent most of the evening in my old room, seated on the edge of a twin bed covered in the same patchwork quilt my grandmother had sewn when I was 12. The walls were still lined with relics from a version of me they had once believed in. Basketball trophies, honor roll certificates, college acceptance letters, every accomplishment prior to the moment I joined ROTC. After that, I became a cautionary tale in this house. There were no framed articles about my cybersecurity awards, No photos from my deployments. No certificates marking my promotions to major, then lieutenant colonel. The most significant achievement of my life, a full colonel in the U.S. Army Cyber Command at 30, was completely invisible in this home. I remembered the day I told them about the ROTC scholarship. I had expected hesitation. I didn't expect disgust. My father had looked at me like I'd thrown myself away. "The military is for people who don't have real potential," he had said. "You were always meant for more." He'd meant his version of more, of course. An MBA, a corner office, and, ideally, a position under his wing at Westbridge Technologies, the same defense firm he'd given his life to. It was always supposed to be Logan, and when Logan stepped into that mold effortlessly, the family narrative was complete. I wasn't the daughter who chose a different path. I was the daughter who wasted hers. Downstairs, I heard the echo of laughter. Dad's deep chuckle, Mom's soft sighs, Logan's booming confidence. The sound of a tribe gathered around a chosen successor. I'd grown used to it, but the irony was almost poetic now. Logan had just been promoted to lead the systems integration team on the very military contract I now oversaw. He didn't know. None of them did. Tomorrow at 0900, I would walk into Westbridge Technologies in full uniform, brief the executive board as Pentagon liaison for Project Sentinel, and evaluate the same technical strategy Logan bragged about at dinner. Back in my room, I opened my suitcase and pulled out the uniform. Midnight blue, pressed to perfection. My ribbons and medals aligned precisely. The colonel insignia gleamed beneath the soft light. I checked for stray threads and polished the buttons with a cloth I always carried. My hands moved mechanically, ritual over emotion. Because tomorrow wasn't about revenge. It was about precision, presence, and performance. It was about finally letting them see who I had become, in a language they couldn't interrupt or belittle. The next morning, I arrived at Westbridge Technologies 15 minutes ahead of schedule. The parking lot was already filling with staff in business attire, rushing through security checks with lanyards and briefcases. I pulled into the reserved spot marked Military Liaison DoD Authorized, stepped out in full uniform, and adjusted my collar. Heads turned as I walked past the front checkpoint. Some stared, some stood up straighter, but no one questioned why I was there. "Good morning, Colonel," the guard at the entrance said, scanning my badge. His tone was sharp, respectful, the kind of greeting I'd never heard in my father's home. Inside, I bypassed the reception desk and took the elevator to the executive floor. I had memorized the floor plan weeks in advance. No surprises, no hesitation. When the doors opened, the first person I saw was Logan. He stood near the hallway window, flipping through a sleek presentation tablet. His posture was relaxed until he saw me step out. He blinked. "Juliet, why are you in— What? What is that?" I didn't stop. "Good morning, Mr. Dane. I'm here for the project review." Behind him, my father's voice echoed before he appeared. He was deep in conversation with two men in matching navy suits. Then he saw me and froze. "Juliet, what's going on? Why are you dressed like that?" he asked, eyes narrowing in confusion. He looked from me to the others in the hallway, gauging their reactions. It was dawning on him, too slowly, that something was off. Before I could answer, a tall woman with short white hair rounded the corner. Lorraine Hart, CEO of Westbridge Technologies, stopped mid-stride when she saw me. Then her expression broke into a smile. She walked directly toward me and extended a hand. "Colonel Dane, I didn't realize you'd be attending in person. A pleasure." I shook her hand. "I was in the area. I thought it would be useful to sit in on the briefing myself." "Absolutely. You'll elevate the room just by being here," Lorraine said with a chuckle. Then, turning to the group behind her, "Everyone, for those unaware, this is Colonel Juliet Dane, our Pentagon liaison for Project Sentinel. She has final approval authority for all military integrations on this project." It was like the air got sucked out of the hallway. I didn't look at my father or brother then. I didn't need to. Their silence told me everything. We entered the conference room together. My name was already on a placard at the head of the table, next to Lorraine's. I sat down, reviewed my notes, and waited. The team began filtering in. Directors, engineers, project leads. Each introduced themselves to me with the careful politeness reserved for people who could stall or greenlight millions in funding. Some were surprised I was so young. Most were surprised I was a woman. None asked twice once they saw the insignia. Logan and my father came in last. They took seats farther down the table, stiff and quiet. The meeting started promptly at 0900. Lorraine opened the session, then turned it over to me. As we begin, I'd like to thank Colonel Dane for joining us in person. Her oversight has been invaluable, and her technical guidance has already refined key aspects of our cyber protocol design. I stood, briefed the room on current milestones, then outlined critical changes I expected implemented before the next round of funding. I made eye contact with every speaker, I asked questions, I requested documentation, and then it was Logan's turn. He stood slowly, clearly unsettled. As systems integration lead, I've been developing a new rollout strategy for Phase 2, he began, his voice faltering. I believe it aligns with our performance targets. I waited, arms crossed, letting him finish. Then I spoke. Mr. Dane, I said, neutral and professional, could you clarify how your proposed method accounts for the latency thresholds specified in our last Pentagon memo? He blinked. I can revisit that portion. You'll need to. Our benchmarks are non-negotiable. Please revise the protocol draft and submit it by close of business Thursday. He nodded quickly. Yes, ma'am. For a moment, the room was still. Then we moved on. I took control of the next discussion item as if nothing had happened. But everything had. The meeting ended just after noon. Lorraine wrapped up with a few remarks about transparency and collaboration, then turned to me. Colonel Dane will remain on site through tomorrow for follow-up assessments. Please extend full access and support. This project is critical to both national security and our future partnerships. As people began to file out, I felt eyes lingering. Not with curiosity anymore, but recognition. My credentials were no longer a mystery. I had earned my seat at the table, and they knew it. My father hovered in the hallway afterward, just outside the glass walls of the conference room. He looked like a man who'd walked into a room expecting applause and found a tribunal instead. Juliet, he said once we were alone, still searching for a tone of authority. We need to talk. I nodded. Your office? He hesitated, then gestured down the hall. Inside, the air felt heavier. My mother was already there, seated stiffly in a visitor's chair. Logan stood by the window, arms folded, jaw set. The three of them together, my childhood jury. I didn't sit. I stood at ease, hands clasped behind my back, calm, unapologetic. You've been a colonel for how long? My father asked finally. 6 months, I replied. 6 months, he repeated hollowly. And you didn't tell us. I did, I said quietly. I sent invitations to my promotion ceremony. Emails, articles. I left voicemails. None of you responded. He opened his mouth, but my mother interrupted. We didn't know what it meant, she said. Colonel, that sounds high, but we didn't understand. Why didn't you explain? Because I stopped trying to justify my worth, I replied. Every time I called, the first question was about Logan's projects or your quarterly numbers. You never asked about me unless it was to suggest I quit the army and come home. We thought you were stuck, Logan said. Like, moving base to base, never really going anywhere. I looked at him. You said last night that people in the military just follow orders. You laughed while saying it. He shifted uncomfortably. I didn't know you were doing this. You never asked, I said again. My mother reached for her purse, then paused. Juliet, I don't know what to say. We should have been at your commissioning, your graduation, all of it. I thought you were pushing us away. No, I said. I just stopped hoping you'd show up. The silence that followed was thick, uncomfortable, but necessary. My father cleared his throat. So, what do you want now? Public acknowledgement? An apology? A headline in the company newsletter? I shook my head. I want nothing but what I've always deserved: respect. For my work. For my decisions. For the fact that I didn't fail just because I didn't follow your blueprint. Logan finally stepped away from the window. You evaluated my presentation today, and you were fair, he said, quieter now. You didn't humiliate me. I wasn't there to, I replied. I was doing my job. He nodded slowly. It was impressive, honestly. You were commanding. It might have been the first genuine compliment I'd ever heard from him. My father stood, but didn't move closer. You've built something we don't understand, he said. That's on us. We thought we knew better. We didn't. For the first time, I saw hesitation in his voice. Not defeat, but a beginning. He extended his hand, not for show, but in a gesture I recognized from every military promotion I'd ever stood through. A quiet offering of respect. Colonel Dane, he said, voice rough, I owe you an apology. I underestimated you, completely. I took his hand, firm grip, no bitterness, just closure. I accept. My mother blinked quickly, then stood. We'd like to try again, if you'll let us. One step at a time, I said. And for the first time in years, I believed that might actually happen. 6 months later, my apartment in Washington, D.C. was quiet but full. The open-plan living room overlooked the Potomac, a clean skyline beyond the windows. My bookshelf held medals tucked between cybersecurity textbooks and a few framed mission commendations. Not too much, just enough. That night, my family joined me for dinner. At my table, on my ground. My father was the first to arrive, carrying a framed article. Figured you might want a copy, he said. It was a print feature from a defense journal, covering the success of Project Sentinel. My photo was at the center, me in full dress uniform, standing beside General Armstrong and Lorraine Hart. He handed it to me like it was fragile. I've had this up in my office for a few months now, he added, eyes not quite meeting mine. Thanks, Dad, I said. It means something. My mother followed a few minutes later, holding a warm pie tin with both hands. Apple, she said with an awkward smile. Still your favorite, right? It is. She glanced around the apartment. So clean, so organized. I don't know how you keep it like this. I almost replied with a joke, military habit, but decided against it. She was trying. It didn't need commentary. Logan and his wife came last, bringing an expensive bottle of wine and a strange kind of ease I didn't expect. After dinner, as the dishes clinked in the sink and conversation drifted toward quiet praise, Logan pulled me aside. I implemented the rollout structure you mentioned, he said. The team didn't love it at first, but it works. Better than what we had. Did you tell them where you got it? He grinned sheepishly. Eventually, after I let them believe I was a genius for about 5 minutes. I smirked. As long as it's working. He nodded. It is. And so are you. I mean, you've really got it together. I don't think I ever said that. No, you didn't? Well, I'm saying it now. Across the room, I saw my father examining the medals on the shelf. His eyes paused over one in particular. The cyber defense citation for counteracting a foreign breach that had almost crippled 2 federal networks. I read about that one, he said quietly. Didn't realize at the time. You were leading it. I was, I answered. He didn't add more. He just nodded. It wasn't a parade. It wasn't a movie ending, but it was real. And that made it better. Later that evening, over coffee and my mother's pie, my father raised his glass in a quiet toast. To Colonel Juliet Dane, he said, who proved that your worth isn't found in following someone else's path, but in walking your own. We all raised our glasses. I looked around that room and saw something I'd never seen growing up. Recognition. Not pity, not tolerance, but the kind of earned respect that no one could take back. And in that moment, I knew something important. The victory wasn't in them finally seeing me. It was in the fact that, even if they hadn't, I still would have kept going. I thought I needed their approval, that someday, if I worked hard enough, They'd finally see me. But the truth is, I didn't need their recognition to be real. I was already enough. Walking into that boardroom in uniform wasn't revenge. It was quiet clarity. I didn't need to explain who I was. My presence did that for me. They once told me I was wasting my potential, that I'd never become anything. And yet there I stood, leading the very project they'd built their careers on. That moment didn't heal everything. It didn't erase the past, but it did something better. It proved that I never needed to follow their path to create value. So if they underestimate you, let them. Keep building, keep rising. And when the moment comes, show up, fully, calmly. Because the strongest proof isn't what you say. It's who you've quietly become.